being here. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We are honored to have Troop 70. Is that
Oh, nice.
very good? Front and center, gentlemen, and at your commands, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, fellas. Okay. It's Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. We are here for the Town Council regular meeting. We took the Pledge of Allegiance. We will now have the roll call.
Rita Bettino,
Here.
Tom Butterworth,
Here.
Janet Phones, Luke Hoffman,
Here.
Mike Morrow,
Here.
Maria Norton,
Here.
Kimberly Norton,
Here.
Hillary Orman,
Here.
Christina Ross here, Eric Coonan,
Here.
Penny Young,
Here.
And mine.
Jennifer Zonas.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Okay, we'll now call the meeting to order. Our agenda item number 2 are public comments. Members of the public are welcome to speak to the town council on agenda topics scheduled for review and/or vote. Speakers are requested to provide their name and street address, and comments will be limited to 2 to 3 minutes, subject to the total number of speakers. Are there any any people wanting to speak to the town council? It doesn't appear to be anybody in the room. Anybody on Zoom? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, budget update and review, further review and discussion by town council, if necessary. So now we're in item number 3. As we discussed last week, last Thursday, we had a similar item on the agenda, we had a pretty spirited discussion, some follow-up items by members of the council. We had some discussion on the Board of Ed headcount, some additional discussion was had. Dr. Lutzy came back up. He gave some fantastic explanations in response to questions we had asked. And we concluded that portion of our meeting by me saying if anyone had any further ideas about potential reductions to the budget, to come tonight prepared to discuss that and make any motion they deem necessary so we could have a discussion. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over now to my esteemed colleagues here for that discussion. And is there anyone who wants to raise an issue with any item of the budget in terms of whether a proposed reduction to any of the departments or really overall to the budget should happen? So to that extent, would anyone like to commence and start?
Thanks, Mike. Actually, I do. So I was not fully prepared last week to really talk about this, but we did ask some questions, and Dr. Lutzy, I really did appreciate your explanations. And I have so much respect for you, the Board of Ed, and the schools. My son is in high school, and he has been the benefit of this great school system. So I'm saying this with a lot of thought that went into this. Just stepping back and looking at the full picture of our budget, we're looking at a 6% increase, about $9 million to be exact, on all very, very healthy budget. And inflation, it's above, what is considered inflation at this point. I know that a big part of this is about salaries and associated expenses. But again, this is also a reval year. And while not everyone's reval will be above that 25% average, there will be those that will be negatively affected, including older residents, including struggling residents. And so I take this I just take this seriously. I take our job really seriously. We are adding a total of 15 new full-time positions between the town and the Board of Ed. 13 apply to schools. Now, that includes the 3 that are officer positions for safety. But really, 13 full-time positions are being added for the benefit of the schools and for those that attend. 7 brand new, 3 coming off grants, and then the 3 officers. while full-time positions, don't add up to $1 million necessarily, they are ongoing costs and they don't go away and they just get built upon going further. So again, I love our schools. I'm very supportive, but I'm uncomfortable. I'm just uncomfortable adding any more ongoing expenses than I believe are necessary. It's not just the salaries, it's how you budget, it's the benefits, even though it isn't budgeted, benefits are involved and insurance is involved. And while we would love to do everything, and I would love to do everything, it all sounds really great. I think we need to make some hard decisions. I think we need to prioritize. And I think we need to consider what we want to prioritize this year in a reval year and think about maybe what we might want to postpone until next year, considering next year. So I know that we're a rich town, we're a generous town. But I don't think that means we need to just pay for absolutely everything we would like to do. I think we need to prioritize, especially this year. So to that extent, I think we should consider, and again, we can't tell you how to do this. I hope we strongly encourage that you look at full-time positions, but I encourage that we look at a cut to the Board of Ed budget. So I think that's kind of up for discussion. I think one amount that we could consider is, again, I'm throwing this out, $250,000.
Anyone care to comment, support, not support? Now's the time to have this discussion, whether it be the Board of Ed or any other department as well.
I'll comment.
Sure.
With all due respect to my colleague, who I really, really respect, I do not support a cut to the budget, to the BOE budget. I think that, one, it will not have a substantial or even small impact on the mill rate. I think that we, or I, fully trust the superintendent to be staffing appropriately. I think I said last meeting, and I'll reiterate, that it's never been harder to be a public school teacher or administrator. And I think the support that we can show is more symbolic than any cut we could make that will not seriously impact or even impact the mill rate for our residents. I think that I also have a child in our public school system for the first year, and I've been simply amazed, having come out of a private school, what is available to our kids. I think we are so lucky to have a district where we don't have a lot of attrition. There are school systems in this country that have gone down to 4-day-a-week schools because they don't have the staff or teachers. And I just don't know I just can't support a cut to our amazing schools. They're the industry of our town. They're the reason people move here. And we've seen in the POCD results and in other surveys how our residents really value what our schools bring to the town, to their property values, to everything, to their children. It's such a gift. So I will not be supporting a cut to the BOE budget. I think if, to the extent, we want to look at other departments, I'm willing to hear it, but I can't support this. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Now's the time. Maria?
Well, Rita, I really appreciate what you said. I know that's not easy. It's not easy for any of us to look at cuts in our Board of Ed budget. But, and I know we can't specify positions, but in my mind, there were some positions that I felt wouldn't necessarily reach the students and we could postpone. And I like that word, postpone. If you look at the trajectory of staff compared to enrollment, it just visually is hard to look at. So I think maybe, looking at some of the positions that maybe we can postpone, maybe the athletic director, maybe look at creative ways to teach the extra requirements for finance in the high school, the coach, which I've mentioned in the past, family and community liaisons, maybe we have town services that cover some of these needs. So I would support a cut for $250,000, and I think that's a fair way to do it, and we could look at other departments to see if we can kind of find some other savings. And, you know, I have some thoughts on that, but as far as the Board of Ed, that's what I think.
Anybody else? Christina?
I'd just like to say that in looking at the budget, the one thing that I agree with my
It's not green.
We need green.
Okay. We're talking about the microphones. Anyway, in looking at the budget, one of the things that caught my attention is the fact that we are replacing vehicles every 7 years on the Board of Ed. I don't know what the mileage is, and I don't know what the maintenance issues are, but I think that we can stretch it a little further to alleviate the increase to the Board of Education in a way that it won't affect the kids. So I am asking for a little bit of conservative thought to go into it and to look for ways to cut in things that are not necessarily must-haves, but want to have. And I think if we are looking at the budget in a more conservative way, there may be other ways to cut. But that was one of the things that really got to me. I don't think that the assistant athletics director, and some of the other positions that are being offered are necessarily necessary to increase the quality of our education. You run a tight ship. It's a great place to be in second place, and we would love to be in first, but maybe economically this is not the time to push it to that level. Otherwise, I applaud all of you because you do a tremendous job on the Board of Ed.
Jennifer?
So I just wanted to say that, that I just am very appreciative of my colleagues in terms of the hard work that they've done to just try to look at the budget and to see, you know, if there was any place to capture any savings, because I just think everybody, that, and Rita, you put so much work into this, it's just incredibly well-meaning and with the taxpayers in mind, because this is a difficult year. And in the conversation that we're hearing out on the street about the concern about the reval. So as a newcomer, I'm still trying to figure out where I land, but I am very supportive and appreciative of the effort because I think it's admirable in the taxpayers' interest.
Else? I think everyone should, well, I don't want to put everybody on the spot, but we're elected to make these decisions. We are the only body in this town with the statutory authority to say yes or no on any penny that's spent in this town overall. So it's only our responsibility to say go. And I think everyone needs to be on the record as to what their position is as to supporting a $250,000 cut to the Board of Ed. And if there's any other departments, and this isn't just, you know, Board of Ed isn't a piñata here. I mean, there are other departments, and if we think that there's something that could be considered as a reduction, then, you know, now's the time to state it. So I think it behooves all of us to state for the record so the people who elected us know exactly where we stand and the reasons why.
Can I get the floor for a second, Mike?
Yes, please, Luke.
So I think the word cut is super negative, right? So like cut means like you're taking away what was from presented. I think Rita made an excellent point of postpone or down the line, something of that nature. And maybe like here's the hopes and what we want to do today. And maybe, you know, that's a 6-12 month delay, but the word cut is like we're taking away from people of certain things. So I think that negative connotation, let's use verbiage that says like, hey, like postpone or adjust or monitor certain things. I think, you know, we've all, and I'm proud to sit next to everybody up here, and you've been dedicated to the trade and what we're looking to do for the town of New Canaan. And we've been big supporters of the Board of Ed. Just socializing, understanding like, hey, you know, these are some ideas and maybe we don't have the appropriate lens to view or understand some of these things. And I think that the socialization of what we're discussing, and I'm not sure, maybe Rita has a lot more, like an algorithm that she got for the 250, but I think that the number's a little bit more broad-based, right? I mean, I don't know. But, you know, I have a software company that probably can come up with those numbers. But for the most part, I think like we're all in big support of what this town stands for. And, you know, we're excited. I just want to say, like, in terms of the idea of cut is a very negative connotation, and there's a lot of support from everyone up here towards what the efforts of and the tremendous amount of work that everyone's done to get to this point. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Tom? Did you want us all to say whether we're for or against?
Yeah, so Luke, and your position is you would support a reduction?
Yes.
Thanks, Tom.
Long-winded way of saying that.
So I just wondered, I think we may have different, honest and studied, valid differences of opinion on what our role is. I've given some of this a lot of thought through the years that I've been on town council, and we clearly have a role of validating, confirming legitimacy of budgets, looking very thoroughly at whether the needs are valid and justified. I also think in that process, we need to defer to experts as to what the need is. We did a survey in the town I think it was about 4 years ago. And we asked taxpayers, and they responded that 73% responded that living in New Canaan is a good value for the taxes I pay and the services I receive. I think we have a mandate from the town that we should keep the schools at their level of excellence. People want that. And so my sense is if we've had convincing arguments in favor of the budget, us not being experts on it, not experts on identifying the need. For instance, I can't put myself in the position of Dr. Lutzy as to whether a math coach is necessary, but the logic that he presented was awfully compelling. So, you know, I wonder if what we're tempted to do is to say to taxpayers, the people who meet on the street, I went to bat for you, I cut $250,000. I think there might be some people we meet on the street that would say, why did you do that? You know, I wanted to be sure, I wanted you to make sure on my behalf that the schools maintain their level of excellence. So that's where I am. I would not support the reduction of $250,000.
We have Kim, Eric, and Penny left, so
I think what we're talking about in light of a $175 million budget, a $250,000 cut is at best a symbolic piece of work. And if we are going to make a symbolic action on behalf of the citizens and the taxpayers, I would submit that we should make an equal symbolic impact on every other department across the town budget that has the same or a higher increase in full-time salaries as the Board of Ed. So if we're willing to make that a fair assessment across all those other departments, some of which have asked for north of an 11 or 12% increase in full-time salaries. But if we're willing to make that cut at the Board of Ed level, and which is at best a symbolic action, I would submit and suggest that we make that a fair and equally applied symbolic action.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I don't know if I agree with that part. I'm mixed about it. I talked to a guidance counselor today and was talking to them about how many kids each of the guidance counselors have, and I know it's about 175. So cutting 250, I'm hoping, I don't know what's going to be cut if we decide to go with this. It is a 0.2% cut, which is a very small cut in a $109 million budget. I do think, I agree with Eric that it is a signal that it would be good to try to keep budgets within inflation, you know, the same rate as inflation. 6% is a lot different than inflation, and we all have to live, you know, within our budgets. So as much as I consider the Board of Ed experts, I also consider us experts in representing the public. Maybe not experts, but at least that's our role. So for that reason, I will support a cut, but I do it with mixed feelings.
but the BOE operating budget increase is 3.95%. The total BOE is 6.17%. So
So I guess I'm talking about the whole budget is 6%.
Well, and also that doesn't capture the 3 positions, which it probably
that's
doesn't
in the
make.
police budget.
I know, but it is for the benefit of the schools. It's, again, and I just want to, like,
No,
for
I
me,
would,
it's, well,
I don't know that I would say that, and I don't think that's fair. And if it was entirely for the benefit of the schools, I mean, presumably they could be deployed if there was a shooting situation in any part of town or any sort of emergency situation, that they wouldn't be limited. They wouldn't have to sit at their desk at the school and not move. So I don't know that I agree with that assumption.
well, that's the assumption I am making because we wouldn't be hiring them otherwise. They are being hired specifically for the schools. And I don't question that, honestly. Again, I don't want to suggest that I don't have faith in our schools, in Dr. Letzi. I only feel like we need to prioritize. And we do that in our own lives. We do that. I'm a CMO of a small company, and I'm forced to prioritize even when I want to spend more. And I think we need to make choices. And I think for this year, I think safety is a really good priority to have. And I think that makes sense. And I think we can have other priorities going forward. I just think sometimes it's a balance. And I think this is a year we need to consider balance. So, but I see your point.
Penny?
Every year we have this discussion about, what's an okay increase in the Board of Education budget. And typically Board of Education budgets come in higher than percentage-wise than a lot of our departments. And it kind of doesn't sit well with a lot of the departments. I mean, is the Board of Education sacred that we can't have a reasonable discussion about their decisions and how they spend their money? This is a tough budget year, but all years are tough. So we can't just say it's this year. But I just think coming in with the number of new faculty that they're coming in with is really extraordinary, when enrollment really has not increased that much. And yes, you have state mandates that we have to respond to, but maybe the state ought to give us more money if they're, mandating increase in our programming. But I think we need to let the public know that indeed we are looking at the Board of Education budget, and as all budgets, and that we have some concerns about the rate of growth in our staff. So I think we should do something to send that message to both the public and the Board of Ed.
Thanks, Penny. So my position is the following. I would support a reduction to 250. I wouldn't support a 0.2% reduction across all departments. I think and for a couple of reasons. One, we have line item authority on the other town budgets. We don't have that for Board of Education. Also, it's not an apt comparator to the Board of Ed versus the other departments, given just the sheer size and the ability to quantify headcount versus student headcount versus personnel. You can't make that application to Department of Public Works or the police department or the fire department. I think for a reason that I think potentially could be helpful, and it amplifies a point we were making earlier, it may or may not, and this is probably my chief reason why, give the Board of Ed a little bit of an advantage at the bargaining table for labor negotiations. Because if you were to walk in there and say, look, yes, we're a wealthy town, but, the town council cut our budget because they're concerned about our head count. So when you walk into negotiations, it's giving the Board of Ed a little something to work with when you're negotiating with the unions. Because right now, there's very little that they have to sit there and try to extract any type of meaningful concession. So to me, I look at it as it's saying the town council just doesn't rubber stamp what we're coming forward with. We are actually, we are accountable to the town council because the town council is accountable to the 20,000 residents of the town. So for me, it's giving something to the Board of Ed to walk into their negotiations with, which they're going to be doing in a matter of a couple of months, if not sooner. And I know they'll probably be starting their bargaining strategy preparation. So I think that, to me, is at least something that's going to maybe help at the bargaining table. And as Dr. Lutzy explained to us, it's extraordinary to try to really extract any material negotiated concession from the union to start to try to get a handle on that fixed labor cost, which is, I think it's what, 82% of the Board of Ed budget, because that's what we're talking about, is it's our labor contracts. 62% of the town budget are labor contracts. If we're ever to achieve any meaningful savings, I've said this for however many years on town council, that's where we have to look. And if we cannot achieve a reduction or a more smoothed out process over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years in terms of headcount, we're really kidding ourselves that we will ever have a budget that comes in less than well, not less than inflation, at 0 or something less. Because and I want the public to really understand that. This town, the issue on our budget is our fixed labor costs. If we cannot find different ways to pare those down, then we will always be stuck tinkering at the margins. Because that's where we are. We're in that little discretionary. It's the same thing with Tiger's budget, the Board of Ed, the police, everywhere else. We're just tinkering on the sides. And unless we develop a comprehensive strategy on how to bargain better, or get, not bargain better, just get a more meaningful result, which I don't know if it's possible, but at least with some type of arming these departments with something going into these negotiations to say, the town council is not approving, these types of, economics at the bargaining table. And and if it ultimately goes to interest arbitration, it goes there, and the arbitrator could consider that as an arbitrator's picking the best proposal, best and last proposal by both sides. There's another X factor here that I think really gets lost in our discussion with the Board of Ed. And Rita, you kind of were scratching on it last time. There's no question that, and I say this all the time, Dr. Lutzy knocks it out of the park. He's phenomenal. He's worth every bit of the effort and everything he gets from the town, and we are really lucky to have him and his whole staff and the Board of Ed. I truly believe that. With that said, as we all know, a major portion of school excellence in a child and their performance is in the household and the parents and their sacrifices that they make day in and day out. Number one, to live in a town like this. Number two, sitting with their child and going through their homework with them, making sure they're on top of everything, making sure they're utilizing the fantastic resources that Dr. Lutzy and the Board of Ed lays out for these children. I mean, we're all parents up here, okay? We all have children. Some are older than others. Mine are young. I walk in the door at night, dead tired, fighting with people all day long. It's, 8, 9 o'clock. I come home, my, son and daughter are still at the table working on their homework. I just want to literally flop down on the floor. But I want to make sure that the reason I'm here is because they're getting a fantastic education. If I have to sit down and spend an hour with them, working with them, I will, and I do. And in this town, we are very blessed with, and I say this all the time, sorry I'm rambling, but this is very, very critical for the public to understand this, that we get it. The parents in this town are phenomenal. They are highly educated. They're wonderful people. Everyone went to fantastic schools. They push hard, and we all understand the value of excellence in education. So that is getting transferred onto our children. So it's that major component and push from the parents that are pushing this fantastic performance. And so while Dr. Lutzy lays out, here's the performance factors, we're crushing it, in basically every category. We got that right, and it's because of the Board of Ed, it's because of Dr. Lutzy and his staff and the teachers, but it's the parents too who are giving their all to make sure the kids are staying on track. So when we say, well, it's a symbolic cut, or it could hurt the children, maybe we don't want it to be to a math coach or whatever, but you're talking about, well, what about the parents who are on top of their children pushing forward to make sure that they are maximizing their experience? So it's important for all of us to keep that in perspective, you know, when we consider any type of a reduction to the Board of Ed budget at all. You know, and I would say, and this is important, you know, maybe slightly contradictory, but it's more of just a general point. And Dr. Lutzy really nails it when he says, you know, when you look at the spending per pupil versus our peers, you know, it's just it's an insanely awesome value. I mean, it really is. You know, keeping it where it is versus our comparators. But that also feeds into my point about what else is out there that's causing crazy awesome performance, and that's the X factor of the parent. So I want that to be considered here, that when you're talking about a reduction having a materially negative impact on performance, I just don't think that you get that with this type of a reduction. So, you know, with that said, I would support this type of a reduction at this time, and I do think there are other atmospherics that are involved that I think require the people to understand from the residents to understand from the town council. We do get the issue of a flat head count, but with, you know, however, how many more we've seen in the past in the chart? What was the number? Like, I don't know, whatever the number
Yeah,
was.
it was.
It's a constant question I get a lot. So we're saying, you know, what are you guys doing about this? With all that said, I'm in support of it for those particular reasons. If there's anyone else wants to care to comment, we can continue to debate the point, or we can just get to a motion on it and,
Well, are there any other cuts that people?
yeah, so is there anything other than the Board of Ed I'd like
don't
to discuss?
Can we deal with them one at a time? I mean, can we just,
Percent, Tom, that's a
can we
good
just
idea.
vote
Oh,
on the
okay.
Board of Ed, make a motion,
We do that?
We could do that, sure.
put that to bed?
Okay.
Okay, so,
I don't know how you do that.
Right. Yeah.
all right, so then we
Straw poll.
want to do the straw poll?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do, you know, all those who would favor a reduction to the Board of Ed budget in the amount of $250,000, raise your hand. Benny?
She got off.
Those that abstain?
That's 7.
Is it 7?
It's 8.
All right, so. All right, so it's 8 in favor on the straw poll.
Okay.
Okay, so now we can move forward. Any other department, would anyone like to have a discussion about reducing any other department line item? Maria?
It's ironic because the two departments that I'm feeling that we need to cut back are really my favorite, you know, interests. And education is one and the library is the other. I feel that the library, we've been very generous as a town to this point, and they're asking for an 8% increase, and I would like to see that at a 4% increase. And hopefully their model might include, as generous as the courses are, the classes, the workshops. You know, I'm looking at some other towns, they do continuing ed, and they charge nominal amounts, but it at least subsidizes the cost of these programs. So I would just like to push back a little bit on the library's budget and allow them to be creative in how they can come up with the balance, but I would like to reduce that from 8% to 4%.
What's the monetary value of that reduction?
Well, a 4% increase is 107, so I guess it's reducing it by 107.
So sorry to be the canary in the coal mine here, but I would, again, not support a cut to the library budget. We get a phenomenal deal with this library funding only 75% of the operating budget. I'll also note that several of the highly subscribed programs that they had last year were actually funded by town members, in addition to the vast majority of the building of the library. But for instance, a town resident funded the Misty Copeland presentation. There are other presentations that are funded by generous members of our town. where I grew up, the library was fully funded by the city. So the fact that we get a 25% discount on that is pretty significant to me. And just as a little anecdote, when I first moved up here with my daughter, who was 9 months old, I had no idea what Fairfield County was like. I thought when my husband said he got a job in South Norwalk, I asked him what part of Brooklyn that was. I had no idea. So we moved up here and I didn't know where to move. I didn't know where to buy a house. And I tried to enroll my daughter in Mommy and Me classes across the various towns that are past Stamford. And there were 2 libraries that required a fee and residents only to do the Book Babies class. And New Canaan was the only one I could find that did not. And I ended up meeting my best friends there. And I ended up coming home and telling my husband, we're moving to New Canaan. So this idea that you charge a fee or you limit programs to residents, to me, is very short-sighted. And I don't think it will generate a ton of income. And I think libraries are the last free gathering place for residents. I think even a nominal fee is really, could be a hardship and could limit it. And I think we have to maintain the sanctity of the library in that way.
I'd like to chime in too. I would not be for cutting the library budget. And I happened to come in to the earlier, the Board of Finance discussion on it when the head of the board of the library presented the first time. And I thought there was a really interesting Q&A when a few of the Board of Finance members pointed out that, so the suggestion was that there's so much programming, you can cut the programming. But the point was the phenomenal increase in foot traffic on a daily basis and the wait list for the programs, these members of both parties were saying, spoke to the great demand in town for said programs. And it's obviously serving a need in the community. And not for nothing, just ironically, I happened to be listening to the radio today and there was a story on libraries in the tri-state area, and one of the guest speakers was from the Westport Library, and they were talking about a tech program, and they were asking, can anybody come? And they were like, anybody, you don't even have to be from the state of Connecticut to come in and do the program. So I just would be heartbroken to see that we start charging.
I mean, I just want to stress, we wouldn't be, they're still getting $2.7 million in funding. So, I mean, I don't feel like it's cutting them off totally. It's just scaling it back and, you know, compared to what they've received over the last years. Yes, it's a great deal, that there's no doubt about it. But I think trimming there, I could see that they could probably manage around that. So I would support that.
And I suggest we make a motion, like Eric said, and we cut everything. I'm not quite sure why we're sort of picking on two areas. If we want to make a real impact, if we want to impact the mill rate, if we want to produce a result for the town, then we have to do something uniformly.
I think we need to
understand why we're
take
picking
each
on, like, the
department on a
two.
case-by-case basis. I don't think to take a hatchet to all the departments is really a mindful approach. But in terms of Maria's
Neither is
comments,
a random $250,000 budget cut to the Board of Ed. I mean, that,
I don't find it random. so-
yeah, I mean, I just
you.
want to move on to the library. So whether the programs are open or not, I think that's a great story, Hillary. I love that story about coming to town and, you know, going to Book Babies and that being the only one that wasn't charging. I think that's a great story, and I think that does make people really, you know, love our town. I mean, that $7,000 could go towards anything. I mean, the fundraising budget, I'm not quite sure as to why the town pays for the fundraising of the library, because those particular events people can't go to. Like if it's 1,000, I don't know what the tickets are. They're expensive tickets. So it's not really the same as, you know, having free programs, but then having really famous people come and then people that can't afford it can't go anyway. So I'm not really sure why we're paying for the fundraising. So my comment is, it's up to your discretion where you're going to cut it if this passes, but why the fundraising budget? Why does the town have to pay for that?
May I speak?
Please.
We have just gone big picture, stepping back. We've just gone through a process of raising ballpark $30 million of private money to build a magnificent new structure that is just overrun with new activity and new people, children, adults, older people. we basically made a statement to donors that this is what you're contributing to. You're contributing to a free library. Now, the town council's sitting here and saying, actually, we don't really mean that.
It's
After
not-
we
it's-
took
it's
$30
not
million,
free- It's not
we're gonna
free to
change
go
the
to those
definition of
special
what we do.
events, though. Those fundraising events are not free. They're fundraising events, and not everyone can go to them.
Well,
So it's a
so-
free library, but it's association library. So we pay 75% of the budget.
Well,
That's the-
Maria's
There's 15
Maria's logic
association
was-
libraries and, what?
Maria's logic was it won't hurt because you can just start charging for programs. I assume you meant across the board.
I'm talking about the
I'm not sure that's what
programs.
she said.
What did you say?
The workshops, there's 6-week courses that are free. There's daily workshop. I mean, there's certain things they could charge for, just like other towns do, like.
Yeah, which
Wilton-
I think is appropriate.
I mean, there was, the fundraising, that's totally separate. I'm not talking about the fundraising. I'm talking about the being creative and finding ways to subsidize the programs that you're offering.
$107,000 is a lot of programs.
But Maria, that can come from anywhere, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the
that's just one
fundraising
thought.
budget is over that, and we're paying for that. So I think it's up, we could discuss
How much are
where,
we paying for fundraising?
I have to look it up in the budget. I can look it up.
The
That would be good to
fundraising for the library is scheduled for $145,583. I personally feel it should not be 107. It should be that entire line item of 145,000 removed from the budget. I don't feel that fundraising should be at the cost of the taxpayer. It should come out of the proceeds of your fundraising. That's the standard, and that's where we should be. And I think that line should be taken out in however the library wants to handle it. But when the Board of Finance was discussing the addition and the new construction of the building, there were promises made by the library that the utilities would be taken care of, that they would not increase, and we're seeing a tremendous increase in the utilities of the building and in the care of the landscaping and other decisions that were made for the library that were not in accordance or under the recommendation of the town.
You'll have to go back and see the discussion at the Board of Finance level because they explained that we're not at the point yet where you can make that comment about the utilities because the building is not yet paying for itself. I don't understand like the technology, but it was addressed at that level.
It hasn't been addressed, and it's in the budget, accounting for an increase in utilities that's much larger than what it was to begin with, and being that the building is LEED acceptable, LEED certified.
But that's for this year. They were saying that over time, that those costs would be smoothed out. I'm just saying, like, if you want to go back, you can hear that discussion. It was at a higher tech grade than I can explain.
When I've been part of fundraising events, we talk about how much it takes, how much we have to spend in order to get X return. And sometimes you spend $100,000 to get $400,000. I mean, that's the common thing. So to look at the 100,000 expense and not look at the return on the 100 seems to be a little distorted.
My understanding is the library has an endowment, so why can't they take the money
No,
from
they don't
that?
have an endowment.
They do have an endowment.
No, they do not.
I'm pretty sure I've seen the annual report, and there is an endowment in there for the past 10 years, unless it's gone away.
I can
There was an
confirm that we
endowment
do not
for
have an
like
endowment.
French art.
Hillary,
Okay.
she's speaking.
I just wanted to
Go ahead,
confirm we do not have an endowment.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I just was
You-
confirming that we do not have an endowment.
Okay. I don't know where it went.
I'd like to make a comment at the risk of being inconsistent with what I said before. I think the library is a different case from the Board of Ed, and I can explain that later. But the definition of a library is a place where books and research material can be read, borrowed, studied by the public. To provide that free to our citizens, I think is a wonderful thing. To provide the enormous variety of programming that our library provides to our citizens and others is beyond what a library traditionally, historically, classically understood does. And I think for our library to charge at least out-of-town residents for those programs, to ask our library to do that would not be unreasonable. So I'm in favor of pulling back some of the support to the library from the town budget.
Luke?
I agree.
Okay.
So we socialize things. I'm proud every time I drive to town and see that library. The landscape, the library, I have 3 children, 11, 9, and 8. They use it. I'm huge supporter of it. I think that we just need to set realistic expectations, and we need good communication and transparency. I think they've come, like everything, they've come back a couple times, and we needed X of whatever to continue. But I think the end result has been fantastic. I don't think it's unrealistic to charge something for certain services, and I think that's market. So while I do believe that, I think we've gone above and beyond for what we're providing the community. I think there's something to be said about, is there a preferential cost to then having access to some of these things? And I think that's accurate. I think that's market. I think it's below market, to be honest. I think other people, other towns and ordinances are above that. And I think that, it would be well received given, but we also, on the reverse side, would say, we're charging for this, the level of service provided needs to be at this level. And I think that would hold us all accountable and honest to what we're looking to do.
Anyone else?
Penny?
Oh, Penny?
No comment right now. Thank you.
No comments, okay. I'm in support as for the reasons Eric articulated, so I don't want to belabor the record. So with that said, I think everyone's opined, yes, everybody?
I haven't spoken.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rita.
That's okay.
Please, go ahead.
So I'm going to say what everyone else is saying. I'm a huge supporter of the library. Huge. But I also agree that there are opportunities where I think we could offset some of the programs with some revenue. I think, even just to guarantee people show up when they register, right? A nominal fee could be applied for folks that are out of town, are not in town. I think it isn't unreasonable to ask to pay, again, a nominal fee. And I think the expectation was set that there wouldn't be additional costs prior, like in the previous leadership. And so that was the expectation. I know the Board of Selectmen cut precisely for that reason, and the Board of Finance put it back in. I'm aligned with what the Board of Selectmen decided, and I would be in favor.
Okay, so we'll do a straw poll regarding, well, Maria, what was your proposed cut?
107.
Okay, so who would be in favor of that reduction as a straw poll?
Can I just say, I would like to amend that to 145,600.
Well, we'll have to take 2 straw poll votes then. So why don't we do Maria's 107 first? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
first
Can I
thing
ask
we
a
did.
question? Is that a line item vote on the programming first and then the fundraising, or is it just an amount?
It's just an amount, as
Okay.
far as I can tell.
No, I was just wondering what your proposal was.
Going from 8% increase over last year's amount to a 4% increase.
Which represents a what in reduction?
It's a $107,000 reduction,
So
yeah.
everyone's clear on that.
So the library can cut that wherever they want?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so who would be in favor of that reduction?
107.
107.
Okay. And then let's ask, who would be in support of the $149,000 reduction?
What was the vote?
100?
Could somebody, what was the vote?
Did anyone catch
We
the?
had over 7.
Yeah.
Well, no, can we get a vote?
Sure.
Sure.
Like an
Revote-
actual
revote
number?
on
Let's do it
100.
again.
107, hold your hand up if you voted for
107.
that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, and then let's have a vote
7.
for the 149,000. Or who would be in favor of a reduction of $149,000 to the library's budget? Okay. All right.
Okay.
To do with.
All right, does anyone have, moving on from the library, are there any other departments where anyone has a proposed reduction?
Are we only talking operating or capital?
Well, we're
or-
talking operating.
It's all operating.
Right now, is there any for
Okay.
the operating to any other department?
I have a question.
Sure.
Probably for Tiger. Are there any operating costs in the budget related to the Conrad Road Rotary? No studies or anything?
Not in the operating.
Not in the operating, okay.
When are we doing capital?
We'll do that. If there's nothing else on operating, then we'll move to capital. Okay, everybody is, no other proposals on operating? Okay, so we'll move to capital. Are there any suggestions for reduction to capital at any of the departments?
Right now, capital? I thought we were talking about, I thought that
He
today's
just
just
switched it.
operating.
He just switched it.
Because I'm not prepared to talk about capital.
Traditionally, we've done operating tonight and then
Yeah.
like the next meeting.
I know,
Or two.
I just want to, have a general sense. It's fine if you're not prepared, but is there any general sense of a reduction on any of the capital? If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I'm just
I'm
asking.
not
since
prepared
we're here.
tonight. And I think we could also look at our matrix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
Which I think we should use more often.
I'm already using it, so I can help you if you want.
I mean, I have a comment.
I don't need help. I'm a big proponent of it.
Okay, so as to operating, then there are no other proposed reductions. Go ahead, Maria.
Actually, I've heard from several people about the Rotary at Conrad Road, and I just don't think we're ready to make that decision to fund that project. I don't think the families in the area have bought into it, so I would like to reduce by that amount. I think it's 150,000 for the traffic calming measures on Conrad Road.
So you want to reduce the DPW budget by 100, the operating by 100?
No, I thought we were on capital. Are we talking capital?
Oh, if you're talking, well, we'll have a fuller discussion on capital,
Oh.
but I did ask, is anyone looking
Yeah,
at
that was
something? This
my-
is what you're looking at. Okay, fine,
So for the next time, that's just.
fine. Okay, but again, going back to operating, are there any other proposed reductions to any of the other departments?
I just want to make a comment about capital in general, which is, and this is why I think the matrix would come in handy. The one thing I am concerned just overall is the number of capital projects that we're looking at, and just considering the bandwidth, I just want to make sure that we are appropriately resourced to be able to handle. So bandwidth is something I'm going to be thinking about when I'm looking at all the capital projects that we're considering.
Right,
Yeah, that's just a general comment.
okay, understood. Christina?
As a general comment on capital, I'd like to start right after the budget to start thinking of ways to modify how capital projects are put forth and how they are managed through to design and then bidding, et cetera, and management after the fact.
Understood, okay. Okay, so again, operating, sounds like there's no other proposed reductions to any department, whether it be police, fire, DPW, whatever, town, no other, okay.
There's 6 police officers coming on. None of them
Well, but there's minimum staffing requirements under the union contract.
are. Okay.
Did you want to bring that up?
Nope.
Okay, so that being said, we'll have a
Please.
discussion on the budget update review. I guess we'll conclude that. If we need to now have a vote, so we can now revise what needs to be revised. So, but we need to take the official vote though, don't we?
Yeah.
But we have to read it. Don't we have to read
You
it?
have to read it first.
Oh, so you're
You have to vote
amending,
and read
you're
it.
amending that.
He's redoing it.
Okay. With that said.
Who has a song?
Yes, we have it here. But
Item number 4, I guess we should just hold, and then we'll do that, and then we'll move right to the Playhouse. Oh, sorry. Okay, so number 4 item on the agenda, we'll just hold, I guess, right now while that's happening. All right, then we'll,
Why don't we move on to the Playhouse then?
do you want us, we could start. Maybe we do that, because I don't want to, the Playhouse, let's just hit it tight and move on. All right, so everyone take 5 minutes. It's 8 o'clock. We'll come back at 8:05.
You look great in them.
Who do we
I
want
wish
to-
I
who
could
wants
look that
to
good
read
in
it?
them.
You guys wanna read it? We're gonna have one person read it, and then we'll go around of who will make the motion, so. You wanna read it? So you understand it's read, boom, boom, okay, who wants to make the motion, and then second, and then,
You cut me off as to who wants to make the motion.
okay, fine. Okay, all right, let's go. We on the record?
Wasn't Luke just here? He was
Yeah,
just here.
we can't take it anymore.
I'm probably not going to be at the next meeting or the next several meetings.
Right.
Yes.
All right, start up. Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 4, a proposed budget vote for fiscal year 2024, 2025. To hear the reading of and to vote on the proposed budget for the town of New Canaan Sewer Fund, the town of New Canaan, comma, Sewer Fund and other funds for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025.
Approval of the proposed 2024-2025 fiscal budget, general fund. Total town budget, $42,207,866. Total Board of Ed operating and health insurance transfer budget, $109,145,488. Total other Board of Ed expense paid by the town budget, $287,730. Tax-funded capital budget, $384,325. Debt service budget, $18,914,275. Non-wage contingency budget, $350,000. Total transfer for library budget, $2,791,235. Transfers in outside agencies budget, $852,000. Total general fund operating expenditure budget, $174,932,919.
Okay, so that's the vote we take, as we see on our sheet here, is we're voting for the total general fund operating expenditure budget. So we need a motion to be made to approve that item. So I'll just make the motion so I understand. So I'll make the motion for the total general fund operating expenditure budget be approved in the amount of $174,932,919. We have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'll just go on the record to say that I'm not going to vote in favor of the general fund operating expenditure budget because I vehemently disagree with the cut to the BOE and to the library.
And I just want to reiterate, I'm going to go on record. I will vote for the budget, but I personally disapprove of the cut to the library.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? No? Okay, all in favor? So let's call the roll.
Okay. Rita Bettino,
Did you say yay? Is that?
Yay.
Yay. Yes. I don't know.
Tom Underwood, Shannon Fons, Luke Hoffman,
Yay.
Mike Morrow,
Yay.
Maria Norton,
Yay.
Kimberly Norton,
Yay.
Hillary Orman,
No.
Christina Ross, yay. Eric Thunen, Penny Young,
Yay.
Jennifer Zonas.
Yay.
Okay. We have
Nice.
10 votes in favor, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Okay, the motion passes. Moving on.
General fund non-tax revenue budget total, $11,832,426.
Okay, can we get a motion? Luke, we'll start there. Luke, make the motion, please.
Motion.
Okay. And Tom seconds. All in favor for the general fund non-tax revenue budget total of $11,832,426.
Put in after Vietnam,
Is it unanimous?
because what they found is,
Yes.
what happens is that they just.
Penny, is your,
So yay.
okay, very good.
Fund balance contribution total, -5 million.
Tom, can you make that motion?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Okay, unanimous?
Unanimous. Okay. Next.
I'll make it. Amount to be raised by taxation, a motion for 158,100,493.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Second,
A second.
Jennifer seconding. All in favor?
Okay,
Unanimous.
yes.
Next.
Property tax collection rate, 98.5%.
Sorry, you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay. Second? Anyone?
Second.
Eric seconds. All in favor?
Penny? Okay.
Unanimous.
Yeah.
Sewer operating and capital funds, sewer fund operating expense budget, $1,919,820.
Make them.
Sewer,
Do we have the motion?
I'll
sewer
move.
non-funded,
I'll move on that.
I'll s-
capital budget.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Read the whole thing.
Yes,
Excited.
okay. Sewer non-bonded capital project, $825,000. Total sewer fund expense budget, $2,744,820. Vote.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Go executive.
Yes.
Other funds, parking fund revenue and expense budget, $135,000. Railroad fund revenue and expense budget, $168,000. Rental property fund expense budget, $40,000. Rental property fund revenue budget, $15,000. Steve Benko Waveney Pool Fund revenue and expense budget, $585,415. Movie theater fund revenue and expense budget, $125,000. Recreation and wedding fund expense budget, $1,363,499. Recreation and wedding fund revenue budget, $1,359,580. Total other fund expense budget, $2,416,914. $2,416,914. Total other.
We have to
we gotta
vote.
vote on
Yeah,
that.
vote.
So moved.
Okay. Who's second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Maria.
Maria seconds. All in favor?
Rita.
I did.
Rita. Maria. Unanimous.
Okay. Total other funds revenue budget, $2,387,995.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
All in favor? Unanimous.
okay. Approval of FY '25 capital projects to be funded by tax-supported totaling $384,325. Approve, we have a vote.
Oh, who wants to make the
Kim, you
motion?
want to make that motion?
So moved.
Capital projects.
This is tax supported though.
Okay.
Tax
Not,
support.
not bonded capital.
I'll make the motion, sorry.
All right, Kim makes the motion. Eric seconded,
Sorry.
and we'll, all in favor? Unanimous.
Okay.
But the next item on the-
Approval of FY '25 capital projects to be funded by other sources totaling $6,664,997.
So moved.
Second. So Eric moved, I seconded.
Wait,
Well,
can I do discussion?
So Josh, just so to clear any confusion, please explain this item and the next item.
The second item.
Yeah, the second item. sorry.
Other funding is funded by funds or the fund balance, tax work capital, or bond premium. The smaller items like the mower, some of the smaller vehicles.
And here,
Turn your mic on.
Sorry.
I'll say it over again,
Any
sorry.
grants funded, like for the pavement preservation and things of that nature. Anything that's donation related would fall under this as well. Yeah,
But this is not
This is
approving the
not
capital
bonded.
projects that we'll be discussing
correct.
next meeting.
The next line is voting to recommend this year's bonded projects for bond authorization that then goes back to the Board of Finance. That then they approve the bond authorizations that then comes back to you to vote that final vote on the bonded projects.
And that night, we're permitted to cut?
But so we're just voting for authorization. It doesn't,
Voting to
it's not putting it
recommend-
in.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
The projects can't go on without your vote again on the specific bond authorization groups that have the projects within them.
Could you at some point provide a list that totals $6,664,997?
So you should have that list within your updated, I think it should still be within the budget books you originally got.
Okay,
Yeah, it is.
in a total column.
If you look, there's the bonded, there's the tax supported, and then there's the other.
Okay,
If you would like, I can help break down what falls into the other category, whether certain parts are from bond premium or tax supported capital or what, or tax supported fund balance. I can help you with that for sure.
So let's get a motion for the approval of the fiscal year 25 capital projects to be funded by other sources totaling $6,664,997. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Jennifer made the motion, Luke seconds.
Absolutely.
All in favor? Unanimous? Okay, last one.
recommendation for bond authorization of FY 25 capital projects as per the 5-year capital plan.
I'll make the motion. Second?
I'll second.
Hillary seconds. All in favor? Unanimous? Motion passes.
This completes the approval process of the town council for the proposed 2024-25 fiscal budget. The appropriation shall be filed in the office of the town clerk promptly and shall be published promptly in summary form at least once. The appropriation shall become effective 8 days after publication unless a notice of intent to file a petition for a referendum has been filed in the office of the town clerk within 7 days after publication. Town Charter Section C4-13 and C4-14.
Okay, that concludes agenda item number 4. We'll now move on to agenda item number 5, the Playhouse Theater Project. Tiger, we have, why don't you come on up?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Yes, understood.
I am as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tiger, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for having me. We're almost finished with the Playhouse. We are in the final stages of construction. We've got about 2 months left or so before we're looking to open the doors in June, mid to late June. At this present moment, we're hoping to get back down to the June 1 date that we talked about before, but right now the date looks to be around June 21st. And we're faced with the fact that we have a couple of cost overruns that we need additional funding for in order to then bring the project home, shall we say. So we're short approximately $284,000. Cinema Lab is coming forward with $120,000 of that amount. And we're looking for the town to fund the remaining portion of $163,695.60. These are strictly what we would consider to be building-related or leaseholder improvements. And I can kind of walk you through each one as was determined in our discussions with Cinema Lab and the Board of Finance last week. So we have some additional plumbing for the concession, some, the plating rooms and the bars. That's $58,878.60. We consider that to be typically in the base construction contract. That would be our construction contract. We have some additional design fees for our architect to the amount of $78,018, $78,018, That's strictly for some additional engineering and some architectural work that we needed, not only to install the bars in the plating room, but also we had a series of structural elements that we needed to review and make sure that we were satisfied with the results. And in trying to fit everything that we needed to fit inside the building, we were down to basically inches on some of the rooms. We actually went back to our ADA consultant at one point in time to determine whether or not we could have a room where you didn't have to have the 5-foot turnaround space for someone in a wheelchair, so that they would come in, be able to work, and then wheel back out again. Because we were down to mere inches. We were looking at narrowing walls, things of that nature, to try to make sure we could fit everything that needed to be fit inside the building, inside the footprint that we had available. We also had a situation whereby the staircases, the 2 staircases, if you've been in the building, you can see that on either side, leading to the 1st and 2nd floors. We had originally been under the understanding that Cinema Lab would be taking care of the floor finishes for both the 2nd floor and the 1st floor. That's in their contract. What we anticipated was that the floor finishes would match for the staircase as well. They did not have that in their contract, and they felt that it was necessarily a town expense. And if we consider the fact that it's a means of egress, it would be. So it would be our responsibility. And in order to then make sure that the floor finishes match 1st and 2nd floor, that change was $10,800. That was simply, I'll call that a miscommunication between the 2 of us as to who actually had that in their scope of work at the beginning of the project. And then lastly, when we finally determined exactly what the AV equipment would be, there's some additional heat load that actually comes forward with the AV equipment. The AV equipment we had originally anticipated being, in essence, a laptop in a room that would broadcast out the movies themselves, and we were forced to, in essence, create a small server room, and that's creating about 3 additional tons of heat load that we had to then mitigate. We can't necessarily have the server room be at a high temperature at that point in time. It's very against what the electrical equipment can withstand, and that came to $15,999. So all in, it came to $163,695.60. I can answer questions now, or we can, however we would like to.
Let me, before we start, I just want to frame out what we're doing here tonight. My preference is not to have a long, winding discussion about the rearview mirror. I don't think it's productive. We can have a discussion about that at a later time. I'm not limiting anybody's, freedom of speech here, but in my personal opinion, we're about, a half a foot from the end zone, and we just need to punch it in. And we can talk in the future about looking at this process, examining it, and making sure that, we are, don't have a kind of a repeat of some of the things that happened in this project. But my personal opinion is I think we should just move forward on this and kind of limit the rearview mirror, Monday morning quarterbacking, so to speak, to continue to use that metaphor. But I think we just need to just bring this vote on and get moving, and we can have our discussion at a later time. But we've got to get this project to a conclusion. So with that said, anyone else want to have a discussion, questions?
I have a question. The additional, it says addition plumbing for concession. What was added? Like what was done and what is additional? Is this additional plumbing?
Well, it was in essence, where the final determination was for the concession stand and the plating room and the bars. In order to get the services to those areas, we had some additional work that was required, that was necessary in order to get the plumbing to the separate areas of concern. So we have a bar upstairs and downstairs. There's a service bar upstairs and a real bar downstairs. We have a plating room upstairs for the event space, and each one of those had their own I'll call it special nuances in order to try to get the piping to each area. So yeah, there was some additional work that was required for each. I was asked the question previously, was there anything that was done, then ripped out and then done again? No, there wasn't that. It was just at the time that we had the contractor came in and gave us what his base contract would be, certain things changed during the process and therefore required some additional work. We didn't put
That's
anything
what I
in,
was
take it
wondering,
out.
like, what changed? Like, didn't you know that in the beginning?
The problem with the building is, like, as I mentioned, it was very, very difficult to try to see exactly where everything would be at the time. And while the majority of the design was set at the time that we came forward with the contract, not everything was perfect at that point in time. So it was very, very difficult for the contractor to say, okay, it's going to be X amount of dollars. And then looking at it later on, it turns out to be Y amount of dollars in order to do that amount of work.
Tiger, I appreciate what you just described. My question is, why are we learning about it so late in the process?
This has been an ongoing process throughout. I can't say that you're learning about it. You might consider be learning about it late. Some of the items came forward to us as late as February. The last item is a February ad, so it's not necessarily the majority of it. All these are as you shake out near the end, right? As we put the walls up and then try to determine exactly what we have and what we're left with space after code requirements. That's the problems that we're associated with as we were moving forward with the project.
How do we prevent, I mean, you said there was a $10,000 miscommunication. How do we prevent that going forward? And that having been through many construction projects, like you don't know until you take the wall down, you don't know the plumbing, you don't know, and 100%, you can forecast all you want about blueprints and everything else. The $10,000 miscommunication, is there something that we could put in place that would prevent that happening on a go-forward basis?
We hopefully we won't have a situation like this again. We're not a landlord in many places. Probably a little bit more of a well-defined lease between the two, or as far as the build out goes in the end. That would then have avoided possibly that idea. It's like I said, there's a nuance between the two. Their lease says that they're responsible for the floor finishes. Their feeling of their responsibility is the first floor and the second floor, and not necessarily the staircases. And to be fair, if we look at it from the standpoint of that the staircases are a means of egress, and that's a leaseholder responsibility to make sure everyone can get in and out of the building safely. And then we want the building to look a certain way so that it matches. That's really where we're at. It's not the question of building the stairs. We built the stairs. It's a question of finishing the floors. And then
Just learning and getting better together. Like, listen, we're not gonna stop doing projects here in New Canaan, right? So just having better benchmarks and roles and responsibilities that probably should have been vetted, and I support it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was curious about the plumbing. I was looking at the fit out list from Cinema Lab, and it includes plumbing. I was just wondering how this is different.
There are certain portions of that's Cinema Lab's responsibility and certain portions that are ours, right? So we've got to get a certain amount of the piping to a certain location, and then they fit out the rest of it according to how they want to see their bar laid out. But in order to get to that location, that's on us.
I see. Okay. And just one more question. What's
Sure.
the $120,000 being spent on by Cinema Lab?
We have a detailed list across the board as far as what it is. I can share that with you after.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Is it like, just curious what it is in general, if you can sum it up?
It's very similar situations or very similar thoughts. So in certain things, they're sharing other costs associated with it. They're taking care of the floors, things of that nature. They've got bathroom fixtures, wiring for the concession area, and the bars themselves. There's other thoughts as well, as far as each idea of where they are.
And
But
that's
those are the larger numbers themselves.
Yeah, and that's additional to what was planned in the beginning. This is an extra added
That's correct.
contribution. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tiger, two quick questions. One is,
Sure.
could you explain plating room so everybody understands what that is?
Listen, since you have a service area upstairs for where you're gonna have an event space, you've got a spot for to actually bring the food in. In their case, they're bringing the food in from a local vendor, right? We're buying from a local vendor, which I think is fantastic. And at that point in time, presenting it, so you need an area to actually take the food from the trays, place it onto the plates, and then move it forward from there. So it's almost an area for, if you had a caterer, it's a catering space, if you will.
But it serves food both upstairs and downstairs.
That's
Out of
correct.
that. My other question is, so we hired Ian Hobbs to sort of look at the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And would Ian say, in response to this, oops? Or would he say, well, actually, this is at a level of detail and progress along the course of the thing that I couldn't possibly have picked this up?
I'd say it was the latter. That's correct. It's not, I wouldn't call it an oops in that regard. It's more on the fact of, like I said before, the plating area itself went from several different locations to try to make sure we could fit it into the building. And at that point in time, then we determined, okay, it can only reside in this location. Now we've got to be able to fit it out. That's the nature of the beast in that regard.
I supported the whole project at the beginning, and then I had mixed feelings, and I still kind of have mixed feelings. But if we get this done by June, does that mean the rent payments start? We can
Yeah.
start taking in money?
It starts C of O. So we can't necessarily, excuse me, charge rent until the certificate of occupancy. We can't get the C of O without finishing the building.
So there's a chance we'll have recouped 50,000 this year in rent.
Right. Well, I don't know the exact.
I'm just saying, like.
Right, I don't know I can't remember the entire lease requirements or what it was, but yeah, at C of O, we start to be able to collect at that point in time.
And it'll be so outrageously popular that we're gonna take in some from that.
That's the feeling. It'll be the happening place on Elm Street.
It's gonna make us forget how much we spent.
Okay, any other questions, comments, anything else? I think we should just get to the vote. Like I said, we can have a discussion at another time, how we got here and how to manage the process moving forward. But right now, I think we're ready to vote. So if we could get a motion and someone read this motion out.
I'll do that.
Jennifer, please. Jennifer, make the motion.
Okay. Approval of a request for a special appropriation in the amount of $163,695.60 and project increase authorization in the amount of $120,652.49 for an increase in the total project of $284,348.09. The funds will be used to complete leasehold and furniture, fixtures, and equipment phases of the project. The source of funds is the general fund.
Have a second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well done, Jen.
All right, so that concludes all of the agenda items for tonight. I do want to just make a general statement about budget process. I took over the chairmanship, and it's an honor to do so, and I asked all of you to engage in the budget process from the outset. I think every one of you has, and I think our end product reflects that. So I'm very I'm humbled by all of you and impressed that you all did dig in. You followed the Board of Selectmen, you followed the Board of Finance, you follow the Board of Ed. We utilized our committees appropriately. While I'm proud, I think the whole town should be proud of all of the hard work you did to our newest members that threw themselves in. I'm really impressed because my first year or two, I didn't grasp the budget, I think, as well as you guys have. So I'm really impressed by that. So thank you. You served the town really well. Overall, I think we have the right product. I know the Board of Ed, I apologize. You guys are probably a little crestfallen about that ultimate outcome, but you always come loaded for bear. You always do a great job. We always appreciate the work. I know that the reduction will not have any material impact on the performance of the children. we are really blessed to have the leadership of Dr. Lutzy. We truly are. You know, when I came on town council, just by nature of my training, I'm always skeptical of everybody, but Dr. Lutzy won me over, really. He's really something else. And the Board of Ed, we're in fantastic hands with you all. So I want the public to know overall, and not just the Board of Ed, but all of our department heads are absolutely fantastic. They serve this town with distinction and honor. They do their very best, and our town absolutely reflects every bit of their competency and their hard work. We really have just a stunning community that we're in, that we live in. To the selectmen that are sitting in the back, I know we're absent one. We have great new leadership in the town, and I'm really, really excited about it. Our Playhouse partners here, thanks for everything you've done. I do just want to say one small thing. I think the first selectman is, you know, inherited something here and has done just a really great job. And witnessing how it's been handled under her leadership, I think town's is getting served very well. So with all that said, I want to thank everybody for a long, winding process. Thank you for all your diligence and effort. I really appreciate it. And most importantly, for the town folk, they understand you have a really phenomenal group of people that have stepped up to serve in elected and appointed positions. We all act as fiduciaries, not under the ordinary care standard, and we certainly are very mindful of every dollar that we spend in maintaining a level of culture here in this town that rivals any other in the world, literally. So thank you to everybody, and that's all I have to say. So with that said.
Mike, thank you for being our leader.
Oh, you don't have to, thanks. You don't have to.
Really appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
I mean that.
I second it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, anything else, any other comments, or? Okay, thanks. Lovely. Oh, sorry, go ahead, shut up. All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn? Okay, it all passes. Thank you, everybody.